Radio Telefi Sharon, now on RTE1, the main evening news with Eileen Dunn.
Disturbances following an orange march in Belfast. Police and civilians are injured. A new poll shows 3/4 of voters blame the government for consumer rip-offs. Ceilidh dancers in Cork City enter the Guinness Book of Records. And ahead of tomorrow's All-Ireland hurling decider, the women of Galway and Cork advance to their finals. Good evening and welcome. Several police officers and at least 2 civilians have been injured during violent disturbances in North and West Belfast. Gunshots have been fired at police and blast bombs thrown in the West Circular Road area, while plastic bullets and water cannon were deployed by the security forces. Hundreds of loyalists began rioting after the Orange Order's controversial White Rock Parade followed a new route in accordance with a decision by the Parades Commission.
Loyalist paramilitaries have spent the day engaged in sustained rioting, targeting police and intent on injuring those who stood in their way. The White Rock Parade was the backdrop for the day's events, its passage blocked from the Springfield Road by gates welded shut. The parade did make its way through the Mackey site as nationalist residents watched on. Republican stewards manned those gathered. 2 missiles were thrown, and some taunting did take place, but the most intense violence involved loyalists attacking police lines. Water cannon only served to encourage some of those on parade, but within yards of this incident, police and military personnel were injured with blast bombs and automatic gunfire. Television crews were kept back from the worst of the violence. This man was shot in the shoulder and led away to a waiting ambulance. Vehicles were hijacked across the city throughout the day, with trouble flaring in the Short Strand, Crumlin Road, North Queen Street and Highfield areas. Loyalist paramilitary tactics today have involved paralysing the city and stretching police resources, notably in North and West Belfast, allowing them to attack police lines with automatic gunfire and blast bombs. The violence shows no signs of abating as darkness falls, and all of this largely from the UVF, an organisation supposedly on ceasefire. From early afternoon, smoke billowed across the Belfast skyline, and a highly orchestrated and organised campaign to bring Belfast to a standstill unfolded. A huge military and police presence remains across Belfast tonight, and the atmosphere remains highly volatile.
And Declan McBennett joins us now by phone from North Belfast. Declan, this was being described earlier as some of the worst violence seen on the streets of Belfast for many years. What's the situation now?
Well, it's certainly been the most sustained period of violence right throughout the day. As it stands at the moment, Eileen, within the past half hour, police have used plastic baton rounds on both the Shankill Road and the Albert Bridge Road and deployed water cannon as they have come under sustained petrol bomb attack and blast bomb attack in both areas. You may be able to hear overhead a police chopper with a searchlight on it, which is presently shining down on the Shankill Road. There's an estimated in excess of 1,000 people gathered on the Shankill Road. Reports of disturbances have also been received in the last couple of minutes outside of Belfast in areas such as Newton Abbey and Ballyclare. So police coming under sustained attack. We're now under the cover of darkness, which allows the paramilitaries to operate, and it looks as if this rioting is likely to continue for some hours yet.
OK, Dr. McBennett in Belfast, thank you for that. A Catholic man remains in a critical condition in hospital following what police suspect was a sectarian attack in East Belfast. The 29-year-old man was severely assaulted by a gang of up to 10 men at around 2 o'clock this morning as he was walking at the junction between the Albert Bridge Road and the Short Strand. He sustained head injuries and was left lying on a walkway beside the River Lagan. A new opinion poll shows that 3/4 of voters blame the government for consumer rip-offs, and the poll, to be published in tomorrow's Sunday Business Post, indicates a drop in support for Fianna Fáil, while a pact between Fine Gael and Labour is the most acceptable coalition to run the country for the next 5 years. Here with more is our political correspondent, David McCullough.
Polling company Red C interviewed more than 1,000 adults across the country by phone at the beginning of the week and weighted the results to match the general population. The poll came after a month of discussion of so-called consumer rip-offs, and the results aren't very encouraging for the main government party. Support for Fianna Fáil is at 32%, that's a fall of 5% since the last similar poll in March. Fine Gael at 25 is up 3, Labour at 13 is unchanged, Sinn Féin's support is up 1 at 10, the Greens are down 1 at 6, the PD's up 1 at 4, and others are also up 1 at 10%. But it's not all bad news for the Taoiseach. Asked if they would trust him to lead the country for the next 5 years, 37% said yes, an increase of 6 since last March. But Enda Kenny's trust rating has gone up twice as much, by 12 points to 31%. And asked about various coalition options, 62% said they would find a Fine Gael Labour government acceptable, an increase of 7% since March, when the Greens were included in the equation. The current Fianna Fáil PD government is acceptable to 46% of voters, a fall of 5 points. A Fianna Fáil Labour government would be acceptable to 44%, a rise of 1 point, while a Fianna Fáil Sinn Féin coalition would be acceptable to just 26%, although that is an increase of 6 points. Asked if people in Ireland are being ripped off on a daily basis, 89% said that they were. But who do they blame? The three most readily identified culprits were big business, blamed by 19% of those surveyed, consumers themselves, blamed by 20%, and the government, blamed for rip-off Ireland by 76% of those questioned. The question now for the opposition parties is whether they can capitalise on this feeling in the run-up to the general election, which has to be held by the summer of 2007.
David McCullough. President Bush will travel to the hurricane-ravaged region of America's Gulf Coast tomorrow to reassure people affected by Hurricane Katrina that they will get the help they need. In his weekly radio address, the President said the country had been unprepared for the disaster. Mr. Bush now faces a political row over the suitability of the man who was in charge of coordinating the Katrina relief effort. In New Orleans, an army of relief workers and engineers now occupies the city to help with the massive clean-up operation.
Clearing the mounds of waste from the New Orleans Superdome is a physically unpleasant task, but healing the ghosts of those who suffered and perished here may be even harder for the city's residents. The ultimate fate of the building is undecided.
All we basically doing is removing the debris from the storm victims that were placed on the outside of the Superdome and just trying to get the smell down.
In the days following Hurricane Katrina, the Superdome became a symbol of the plight of thousands of citizens of New Orleans. Now it's where the cleanup of the city is getting underway. Close to the Superdome, the city's Greyhound bus station has been turned into a temporary jail. People arrested are held in cages until they can be transferred to a prison upstate. So far, 250 people have been apprehended.
And that's 250 people that aren't on the street looting and causing problems and keeping us from restoring this wonderful city. Because you can't rebuild as long as you have criminals running the street.
The city is now almost totally taken over by relief workers. Day and night, armed soldiers and police patrol the streets. The relief effort has created a strange life of its own, with 14,000 troops needing to be organised, fed and watered.
These guys are all from Alabama, and they had heard that they hadn't had any hot meals. So it's this is like a private thing. This isn't government or FEMA or anything. And so basically, they just started cooking some more meals for these guys. And I mean, we're serving, I don't know, what was it, 6,000 or 7,000? 6,000 to 7,000 a day.
But the rest of the city remains quiet. Empty streets waiting for normal life to return.
And before we came on air, I spoke to Robert and asked him if the removal of Michael Brown and the President's third visit to the region meant the administration was feeling the heat.
Well, Eileen, there's no doubt that down here the removal of Michael Brown to duties in Washington is being seen as a demotion for Michael Brown himself, and a somewhat belated political acknowledgement that the relief effort in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Katrina was wholly inadequate. Of course, the Secretary of State for Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff, angrily denied that they were somehow getting rid of Michael Brown himself. But down here, that's how it's been seen. And also there's been a lot of criticism specifically at the appointment of Michael Brown in 2001 to FEMA. He was seen as a political appointee. Before that, He had worked for 10 years as the head of the Arabian Horse Association here in the US, a position which many people say left him wholly incapable of handling a crisis of the magnitude of this one.
And Robert, bring us up to date on the relief effort now.
Well, Eileen, I do have some good news to report here from New Orleans. Officials from the Department of Homeland Security have said that following an initial sweep of the city, that the original estimates of 10,000 dead will be widely off the mark. So that's some good news. Also some good news from the Army Corps of Engineers. They're now saying that 1/3 of the city's pumps are now up and running at full steam. They expect the city to be dry within a month. That's opposed to 80 days, which was the original estimate. So things are moving apace here.
Cork has broken the record for the world's biggest ceilidh, currently held by Dublin, Ohio. 8,371 people danced the Siege of Ennis for the required 5 minutes at locations in the city centre.
Chancers, dancers and romancers from all over the country and the world gathered in Cork to help the city dance its way into the record books and smash the world record for ceilidh dancing held by Dublin, Ohio for the past 7 years. From early morning, those Sound of Health from 8 to 80 registered to take part and collect their official wristbands.
Really looking forward to it. Whether I last or not is another thing, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Try to give it a go anyway. I mean, I'm not the worst dancer, I'm not the best, but you know, I'll give Flatley a run for his money.
From midday onwards, the 7 zones along the South Mall and Grand Parade, each with their own ceilidh band, began filling up with people and rehearsals got underway. Strict guidelines are laid down by the Guinness Book of Records for record attempts. Numbers have to be verifiable and everyone has to dance the Siege of Ennis together for at least 5 minutes, so a bit of practice was in order. With moments to go, organisers were still short some 2,000 dancers, but by the time the Lord of the Dance himself arrived with his girlfriend Lisa Murphy, they were all set to go.
I'm honoured and delighted to be here, and I know they're going to break it today. I'm just so happy about this. I never saw so many smiling faces in all my life.
Some 6 minutes and 30 seconds later, 8,371 people had danced their way into the record books.
Official confirmation that Cork has danced itself into the record books is expected before the end of the month. The hope now is for another record Cork score at Croke Park tomorrow. Jenny O'Sullivan, RTE News, the Ceilidh Moor.
Well, for more on that and the rest of the day's sports news, here's Eamon.
Thanks, Eileen. Well, it's been very much a day to remember for champion trainer Aidan O'Brien. He recorded a famous double, Oratio, scooping the €500,000 plus Bailey's Irish Champion Stakes at Leopardstown, while Scorpion surged to success at the English St. Leger.
Oratorio is the leader from Motivator. Alexander Goldrun on the outside, Azamor on the inner. I'm racing into the closing stages. Oratorio, the leader as they go to the line. Oratorio wins it. Motivator second, Alexander Goldrun third.
Scorpion by 2 or 3, possibly extending now. The geezer goes in hot pursuit. Scorpion shies at the rail. Scorpion 2 lengths, lost a bit of impetus. He's still in front. The geezer is closing in second place, but Scorpion has done enough, and Scorpion wins the Leger. From in second place, the geezer who closed well.
To soccer now, and Chelsea kept a 3-point lead at the top of the Premiership after a 5th win in a row. Manchester United lie 4th, just behind Manchester City, after the sides drew in today's derby at Old Trafford.
A minute's silence was held before the Manchester derby to honour former Manchester United captain Noel Cantwell, who died this week. Paul Scholes' free kick on the stroke of half-time provided the first goal as Ruud van Nistelrooy took his chance. City found an equaliser through Darius Vassell's shot, deflected by Joey Barton with a quarter of an hour to go, and despite some near misses late on, it finished 1-1. Chelsea meanwhile won at home to Mick McCarthy's Sunderland, Jeremy scoring first, while Damien Duff's cross set up Didier Drogba for a second. Newcastle recovered from a goal down to Fulham, Charles Nzogbia earning them a point after a frustrating debut from Michael Owen, while Arsenal lost away to Middlesbrough in the absence of Thierry Henry. Ruth Marcavinia, RTE News.
Ireland have moved closer to a place in Europe's top 16 after defeating the Slovak Republic 82-68. Ireland qualifying for the A division in dramatic fashion.
Looks inside to Buck. The NBA star has done the business here when it mattered. 4 seconds of shot clock. Tough shot, Mr. Buck! Mr. Buck! On the line. Shot Gavel has the shot. Oh, yes! It's all over! and Ireland achieved an amazing victory in Dublin.
Amazing scenes. To Gaelic Games now, and defending champions Galway are back in the TG Cahir All-Ireland Ladies Football Final. After an easy win over Dublin, Galway will now meet Cork. The Rebels dramatically edged out Mayo.
A first All-Ireland final in their sights. Cork were favourites for this Midlands meeting against Mayo, but the side who dominated the game in recent years soon took command of proceedings in Portlaoise. Cora Staunton's goal moving Mayo closer, it seemed, to yet another All-Ireland final appearance. The Rebels rallied, however, the free-taking skills of Valerie Mulcahy keeping Cork close. This game would have a dramatic ending. Juliet Murphy's late point nudging Cork ahead, the Munster side securing victory with one of the last kicks of the game. Mayo down and out, Cork can now confidently look forward to a place in an All-Ireland final. The second game in O'Moore Park was a repeat of last year's final, Dublin up against Galway. The Connacht side faring better early on, Niamh Fahy on target. Galway's goal suggesting the Dubs' defence were in for a very busy afternoon. John O'Leary's side failed to claw their way back in the second half. The defending All-Ireland champions impressively advanced.
Well, still on Gaelic Games, All-Ireland finalists Cork and Galway were given rapturous send-offs heading to the capital for the biggest hurling game of the year.
The streets of Ballinasloe this evening, and a scene that at times looked more like a flag Ceoil than the final countdown to an All-Ireland campaign that has electrified the county. At the town's Duggan Park, the 30-strong panel was being put through a gentle workout ahead of the trip to Dublin and hurling destiny.
Fitness could be a deciding factor in the end, and I think our lads are as fit as any team in the country, and I think that we're ready for the big game, and hopefully, you know, in the last 10 minutes that we'll be thereabouts. If we are, I think we'll push on and win.
To get some idea of the passion and the paintbrush mania that has swept the county in recent days, you have to come here to St Brendan's Terrace in Ballinasloe.
It's a huge test, but we're prepared for it. This is where everybody wants to be. You can see the excitement around here. If you're not energised and determined by autumn days or September days in Croke Park, then you shouldn't be involved in any kind of sport, particularly not in hurling. So we know we have a big test, but we're hopeful we'll be able to pull it off.
This evening they left bearing the hopes of a sports-mad county. The dream is that they'll return to an even more tumultuous reception. Jim Fahy, RTE News, Ballinasloe.
Saturday lunchtime at Kent Station, Cork, and the atmosphere is building ahead of tomorrow's Guinness All-Ireland hurling final meeting with Galway at Croke Park. The Cork team and backroom staff were in relaxed mood before defending the crown they won last year against Kilkenny.
Everybody's okay. Yeah, we had 29 to pick from on Tuesday night, and the 29 are travelling, and they're all fit and just chomping at the bit really to get started.
Jeez, I don't care. To be honest, who gets man of the match once we win, like, that doesn't really matter, like. But as I said, no, it's going to be a tough one, like, and everyone's really looking forward to it, you know. We're mad for it, like.
For Cork County Board Chairman Jim Forbes, this is his third senior decider in his 3-year term in office.
It can be beat when you have a 3-year term, but it can be good, of course. But yeah, it's great. It's great, you know, that our hurlers have made it 3 years in the trot, you know. But again, they're a great group of players, so it's not totally unexpected, you know.
The greatest fans in Ireland gave their heroes a fine send-off before tomorrow's big meeting with the men from the West. Pat McAuliffe, RTE News, Cork.
Looking forward to it. Eileen.
Thanks, Eamon. The main news again. Almost 300 people swam in the 85th Dublin City Liffey Swim through the city centre today. Among them 8 sets of parents and their children, 2 grandfathers and their grandchildren. The men's race was won by Dan Smith from the National Aquatic Centre, while Molly Maguire cruised home to take the women's race. She's 60 years old. The main news once again, several police officers and at least 2 civilians have been injured, one of them seriously, during violent disturbances in North and West Belfast. Hundreds of loyalists began rioting during a rerouted Orange Order parade. And that's the main news this Saturday from Eamon and from me. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
With even faster download speeds, Aircom broadband's now better than ever.
Good evening. Well, the weather's looking pretty good for the big match tomorrow. It's going to be dry and fine with light winds, and it looks pretty fine for Monday as well. And at that stage, our weather will be getting warm again. So where's the good weather coming from? Well, first of all, we'll have a look at today's satellite. And certainly a lot of cloud over Ireland, but unlike yesterday when we had some torrential falls in excess of 40 millimetres, most of the cloud over Ireland today just produced some patchy light outbreaks. The main rain-bearing cloud, the more active cloud, was down in the Bay of Biscay, some heavy thundery downpours, and in over France. Developing over Ireland, clear air associated with this area of high pressure, in fact, which is pushing in over Ireland. So we're going to lose the low pressure area, which gave us the recent heavy rain and this fine settled weather moving in. Now, it will be fairly cool tomorrow night, but then it looks like our weather is going to get quite warm. There's a lot of tropical air out in the Atlantic, and in fact, it looks like these tropical, humid southerly winds will be pushing in across Ireland through Monday and Tuesday. A lot of fine weather around on Monday, a risk of some heavy rain pushing into the west and northwest on Tuesday. Some details now, and tonight it's not so warm, quite a cool night in fact, under clear skies, temperatures dropping as low as about 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. Fairly fresh in north to northeasterly winds will be easing down a little bit, and tomorrow we're going to have fairly light winds from between northeast and northwestern direction in sea areas about a force 3. Weather-wise, we can all look forward to a dry day. Perhaps cloud amounts a bit variable, but overall a good deal of fine weather with some sunny spells. And after a fairly cool start, getting quite mild. Temperatures tomorrow 17 to 20 degrees in those light breezes. And warm for Monday, temperatures getting up to 20, perhaps up to 23 degrees Celsius, with the humid southerly winds bringing up a good deal of fine weather. Pretty warm and humid for Tuesday as well. A lot of fine weather around at first, but at that stage there is a risk of some heavy rain getting into the west and northwest. But for more details, join my colleague Jerry Murphy here tomorrow for Farming Weatherline at about 1:10 past. But from myself, a very good night, and do take care. Good night.
You'll be blown away with what Aircom broadband can do for you. Find out more on aircom.ie.